to our webinar tonight called Win-Win-Win Succession Planning. We designed this webinar specifically for independent community pharmacists because it's a very important topic, and it's a very important issue that we're seeing a lot, in the community as we travel around the country, talking with pharmacists. They're extremely concerned that their legacy, the legacy for them, their family, and their community is going to be negatively impacted if we can't figure out a way to get the succession plan working and make it effective. So tonight, sit back. We've got about 45 minutes scheduled for this webinar, and we'll open it up for questions at the end. Wayne Gretzky one time was asked why he's the greatest hockey player to ever play the game, and he said he had a quote, and I thought it was perfect for the situation that pharmacists are facing. He said, "I skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it has been." And I think that's important because what he was saying is he was anticipating, where the puck was going. While all the other players chased the puck, he was anticipating where it was going. And what we're saying is that with succession planning, it's very important that we anticipate that it's going to happen, because it is going to happen. There will be a day where every independent community pharmacy owner leaves their pharmacy, whether it's on their own terms or whether it's on the terms of the big pharmacist in the sky. And so if it's going to happen and it's inevitable, then what we say is it's better to have a plan for it. Better to have it by design than by default. A couple little housekeeping things. There is a workbook associated with this program. We will make that available on our website. So you can just basically go. We'll put it right on our front of our page, homepage, and so you can click on it and then download the workbook. It's a great little exercises in that workbook designed to help you really get focused and develop a real clear, powerful vision for your succession plan. All right. So what is win-win-win succession planning? It's a plan that basically enables you to protect your own interest, protect the interest of your successor, and then ensure the continuity of service to your customers. I think that's very important. There's always these three parties and that we hear pharmacists say they're concerned about. Number one, obviously, is themselves. They want to make sure them and their family are taken care of. But they also are very concerned about making sure the successor, whoever it is taking over that pharmacy, has the best opportunities to succeed moving forward, because that ultimately is the legacy that they leave their community, is the success of that independent pharmacy, well into the future. And then finally, one of the most important parts is the customers or the patients. Every pharmacist, every independent community pharmacist we talk to says they don't want their people to have to go to CVS or Walgreens. So what we say is we've got to make sure all these things, are considered when this succession plan is implemented, and how to work these things and how to make sure these things happen. That's where takes a little bit of thought and takes a plan, in our opinion, to make that happen. There's some critical benefits of a win-win-win plan. You get the most out of the possible. You get the most possible return from the investment in your pharmacy. Now, that's very important. If we can get a succession plan in there and get it working, you maximize the return from your years of hard work in the pharmacy. Create a lasting legacy. We just talked about that briefly on the last slide, but that's very important for most pharmacists. You have greater personal independence. This is very, very important, because one of the main aspects of a win-win-win succession plan, the first person on that list of those three people was the pharmacist and the pharmacist family. Well, making sure that the things are in place to allow you to get out of the pharmacy. It's very important. That gives you greater personal independence. Why now? Independent pharmacy is under assault. You know, it seems like every passing day it gets more and more difficult to own an independent community pharmacy. So making sure you're prepared to get out of this thing, making sure your successor's prepared and understands what has to be done in order to be successful is very, very important for the success of independent pharmacy moving forward. Having that buy-in from you as the independent owner and the buy-in from the successor, knowing exactly what he or she is going to have to do to be successful, is very critical. If we can't make this happen, then the independent pharmacies may go the way of the dinosaur. And that's what motivates us here at Waypoint to get out and get this information out to independent pharmacy owners, because we realize the impact. I'll give you a couple examples. We have a couple pharmacy owner clients here in South Carolina where we are, and one of them said to us the other day, he said, you know, 50% of the money that flows through the bank in my community comes from my pharmacy. Now, I thought that was pretty powerful statement. There's a lot of people employed at that bank because this pharmacy is using that bank. And then we had another pharmacist, and he said, you know, my main concern about retirement or transitioning out of my pharmacy, or my pharmacy not making it in the next 10, 15 years, he said we give 35% of the budget to our church. And this is in a poor rural area in South Carolina, where that church is a hub for helping people in need. They provide clothes, they have a food kitchen, you know, they have all these things that help this thing. Well, could you imagine that if that pharmacy ends up going away? I just don't imagine the big box stores having the same buy-in to that community as a gentleman who actually lives there, works there, and really cares about that community. So the impact can be disastrous if we don't make this happen. Finally, number three, most of you on the line today, in my opinion, and it's been our experience, would like to see your customers continue to be taken care of by an independent pharmacist. It's very important. The level of care that y'all provide your patients is second to none, and unfortunately, if independent pharmacies don't continue in the future, you know, a lot of these patients are going to have to go to the big box stores, and we don't want to see that happen. All right, now succession planning requires some time, some energy, and some money to be spent thinking about how this is all going to work. Most pharmacists we talk to are extremely busy. They're on their feet from the time that store opens to the time that store closes. And at the end of the night, there's not a lot of leftover energy to focus on these things. So it's very important. You are most often too busy to spend time on succession planning. Dr. Menninger from the Menninger Foundation flew in all these airline executives, and they did this whole week-long seminar on planning. And at the end of that seminar, he got up and had all this information collected, and he said, you know, as successful executives, most of you are adept at planning, but most of you don't pay much attention to your own life plan, where you're going, and why are you doing these things. He said, most of us are like the airplane pilot who radios the control tower and says, yeah, I'm lost, but I'm making great time. And I think that's important, because we're so busy doing what we're doing that oftentimes we don't ever step back and say, why are we doing this? It's imperative that we take time to step back and get our vision and goals in line as it pertains to succession planning. You can make tremendous progress. It says today, this is designed to have that workbook in front of you, but I promise you this, when you have this when you have this presentation in that workbook in front of you, you can make tremendous progress on your vision for your succession and getting the things in place that are important to help you, help you with this succession. This is a big one. It's never too late or too soon to do some planning. Most of the business plans that we see now, most of the business plan writing software or things helping people write business plans, they have a section now called Exit Strategy. And most of the coaches we talk to are now recommending that when you go into, a business, you have the exit planned out from the very start. How are you going to get out of this thing? Unfortunately, pharmacists haven't thought a lot about this. But it's never too soon or too late. We had a pharmacist tell us one time, another one from South Carolina, he said, we're going over and we're talking to him. We said, listen, we can help you do a couple things. And he said, I want help doing one thing and one thing only. And we said, okay. And he goes, and he wrote on a napkin, I want out. And we said, okay. And he said, here's the catch. And he wrote, in 6 months. And we were like, okay, now it just got a little bit more difficult. We always say it's never too soon or too late. The ideal time frame is 3 to 5 years, in our opinion, for an exit strategy. Not saying you can't do it in a shorter period of time, but the research we've seen says 3 to 5 years, and the research that we've done and the people that we've helped transition out, it takes some time to do this. One of the main reasons is making sure the successor has the skills he or she needs to run the pharmacy. Sometimes that takes a long time to acquire those skills. Your financial well-being and the future of your family is at stake. That very important. That the decisions you make today about your succession are going to affect the legacy of your family for years and years and years. All right, so today we're going to help you better understand your current situation, help you clearly define what financial independence means to you, give you examples of what other pharmacists have done, stories of success and failure. I've already mentioned a few stories. Show you new ways to have your assets work interdependently to create financial independence. Very important. Very important. And we'll talk more about this. You have to prepare yourself in 2 ways to fully implement a succession plan, mentally and financially. And we'll talk more about that. We'll give you some pitfalls and advantages. There's a couple options for succession. And it never hurts to have more than one option, I always say, because if one option falls through, you have a backup option. Provide new strategies, tools used right away. After today, we feel you'll be much clearer about your current situation, especially when you get a copy of that workbook. Be better able to think through what you need to do. Really important to start coming up with action steps. What needs to be done by when in order to make that happen. Use some of the tools we provide. We have an array of tools available through our website. Feel free to call us. I'll give our contact information at the very end of this. If you have a concern about succession, about any part of succession, your successor, yourself, all that, we most likely have a tool available that can help you think through that process. Start taking action and make immediate progress. All right. It's very important. The first thing you need to understand is we have to understand what questions we need to ask ourselves to help us better understand the situation we're in. So I always say, my father always tells me, that, the hardest person to be honest with sometimes is yourself. Well, if I know the questions to ask myself, then I can really start coming up with honest answers, which can help me make tremendous progress on where I need to go and what I need to improve in order to effectively have an effective succession plan. All right, Stephen Covey wrote a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And in that book, he talks about there's 2 ways to live your life. One is by the compass, and one is by the clock. And I think that's important because Stephen Covey made the argument that it's better to live your life by the compass than by the clock. And we firmly believe that here. We help our clients make sure that that vision, whatever it is for succession, whatever the vision is that they want, that is actually the vision that they want. And then what we encourage them to do is now start living your life according to this vision. Start spending the time, spending your money, spending your energy that helps to help you get you closer to that vision. Now, the great thing is about that is when you do that, if you want to do that and you say I want to have this vision for my life and I want to have it accomplished at 60 years old, but it takes you to 65. Most of our clients are happy with that because they got where they wanted to go, even though it took a little bit longer. A lot of people that live their life by the clock, I have to be here by here, by here, by here, here by this date, here by this date, all that. Sometimes they climb in that ladder of success and they get to the top and they realize their ladder was leaning up against the wrong tree. And I think that's very important. So we always start with, what is the vision? What is the vision for succession? On that workbook, on page 4, there's a great section on reviewing your current situation. I encourage everybody to pause this webinar right now and write down where you are currently. And that will help you get an idea, start getting an idea on what needs to be done to improve your current situation. On page 6, establish your vision. We always say with our clients, why do you want this? Why is this important to you? Some great questions to ask yourself when you're thinking about the vision for your succession plan. Time allocation, very important on page 7. There's 2 columns. We always ask that in one column you write down where you spend your time currently. You put them in percentages, and they should equal 100. And then we put on the other column, prioritize. And I encourage you to do this because what happens is oftentimes some of the priorities that the pharmacists we work with have in their life aren't where they spend most of their time. So getting that will help you better understand your current situation. And then finally, on page 5, after you go through reviewing your current situation, establishing your vision, understanding how you spend your time versus your priorities in life, what are some lessons learned from those exercises? All this is designed to do is really help you get a good start on thinking about succession planning. All right, so now once you really understand your vision and you've got a good vision established, why do you want it? Why is this important to me? Now it's important to really start preparing yourself for succession. And you remember what I said. I said there's 2 things you really need to keep in mind. Number 1, am I prepared mentally to leave this pharmacy? And number 2, am I prepared financially to leave this pharmacy? Now I'm going to briefly talk about the mental aspect of it. We're not really going to get into that. We have a tool available if you're having some issues with that. So contact us and we'll get you. We call it the Letting Go checklist. It's designed to help you think through some things that can help you let go of the pharmacy. If any one of those two things, mental or financial, you're not prepared to do, then you'll never effectively leave the pharmacy. And most pharmacists we talk to, when they say they want to leave the pharmacy, they want a mental and financial break from the pharmacy. They want to know they're going to be taken care of financially, and they gave their successor the best shot to succeed, but they're done with it, you know, and they're moving on. Now, some of our pharmacists say, you know, we'd still like to work there every once in a while, and that's fine. We encourage that because that's a great way to transition out. However, most pharmacists we talk to want that clear break mentally and financially from the pharmacist. So what is financial independence? Excuse me. All right, in your workbook, there's a page that has money equals blank. And I really want you to start thinking about what money is. And we always say money equals life energy. And I think that's important because for a lot of people think money is a way to get things. We had somebody tell us one time money is a way to keep score. You know, all these different answers about money. But when you really boil it down to the basics, we think money equals life energy. You get up every single day and go to that pharmacy and you trade some of your life energy for money and dollars to you and your family. So what we say is this is all part of financial independence because we have to define how much money, how much life energy are we going to give up to accumulate the necessary dollars to be able to live, to be able to be financially independent. I think that's very important. We have a basic formula. The formula is this. Take the total cost of something, of an asset, and I'll give you an example. Let's say a house costs you $1 million. And let's say that includes principal, interest, all these other stuff that you have to pay. And you currently make $100,000. You're going to have to pay 10 years of your life energy making that $100,000 to buy that house. That is 1/8 of your life buying that $1 million house. Now, I'm not saying it's right or wrong to buy that house. I'm just saying that some people would say, yeah, it's worth me giving up 1/8 of my life to have that house. I've always wanted that house. Some people would say the exact opposite. I don't want to give up 1/8 of my life going into work to buy that house. It's just a great way to assess what things really cost. And when you start when you start thinking about things as it relates to time, because that's the only thing we have that we can't get back, then things start to really become clearer. So defining how much life energy we want to spend accumulating the dollars to be financially independent is very important. We call that determining how much is enough. Very important little slide right here. If let me go back real quick. If Joe Dominguez wrote a book called The New Roadmap Foundation. He's out of Seattle, Washington, and he says, listen, the way to be financially independent is really simple. Watch your income. Your income should grow. It should grow over time. I know we're in a period now where income hasn't grown at all, but over time there should be an upward trend of income. And he said if you really watch your expenses, watch them, write everything down, make sure the money that you're spending is going where you want it to go. Your trend of monthly expenses should go down. What's left in the middle is available for savings. Now here's what's very important. He said, when you start accumulating this money, you should start generating income from this money. Now, most people are going to reinvest it until they get to the point where they actually need it. But once that monthly investment income is higher than your expenses, then you're working because you want to, not because you have to. And we call that financial independence. Now, what we've simply done in that example is replaced man at work with capital at work. And how much capital you have and how much money generated from that capital determines your quality of life after pharmacy. Now, the one thing Joe Dominguez didn't say is he didn't say you need to define how much is enough at that level. Then we need to get our monthly investment income to get to that point where we have enough to be financially independent. He did say, though, he said something very important about defining how much is enough. He said we're really taught these lessons growing up. This is Joe Dominguez again. And he said we're taught that if we work hard, we can have nice things. Work harder, have nicer things. So a great example is my father, Rick. He's the head of our company here at Waypoint, and he tells this story all the time. And I love it because it really hits home the lessons that we learn and how that impacts us through our life. When he was 18 years old, he bought a 1966, I think it was a Plymouth Colt or something, or a car, some kind of car like that, and it was used, and he worked all summer. He said he rode around his little town and his square in his town, Macomb, Illinois, and he embarrasses me when he says this, but he says I was a chick magnet. He said I had my long hair blowing in the wind. He said, you know what, that car needed a new paint job. The seats were ripped. He said, but you know what, I didn't care. It was my car. I worked hard for that whole summer and bought that car, and it made me feel really good about myself. He said, so if I feel that good about myself, I'm going to work the next 3 summers. And I'm going to buy a brand new Dodge Charger. And that's what he did. He worked 3 summers in a row. Went right and bought a Dodge Charger off the showroom floor. I think he said he paid like $3,000 for it, which is amazing to me to think about a car for $3,000. But the lesson he's learning is buy nice things, or work hard, buy nice things, work harder, buy nicer things, feel better about yourself. Fast forward 30 years. He went in and bought a brand new Lexus. And after about 6 months of driving that Lexus, he went and traded it back in. Because what happened is he'd been working so hard to buy these nicer cars, to buy these nicer houses. He got to the point where he bought this Lexus and bought this nicer car, and his actual level of satisfaction went down. I think that's very important. It happens to everybody. You get to the point where you are not willing to give up more of your life energy to have these nicer things. When you get there, that's called enough. You have enough things. You have enough money. Defining that number is critical, and then working to get our investment income and our investments to be able to provide that amount of income, that's financial independence. And I think that's very important to understand, because I mean we talk to pharmacists all the time that are buying nicer things, bigger boats, and we're like, do you really need a bigger boat? Oh, you know, I don't know. No one's ever asked me that before. I just assume that's what I'm supposed to do. Well, did that bigger boat make you, that 50-foot boat make you any happier than the 40-footer you just traded in for it? No. Okay, then we need to start reassessing the priorities and determining, do you have enough stuff? And if the answer is yes, then why are we going out and spending this money and spending this time and this energy getting these nicer things when you have enough. So that's just another way to help you think about financial independence. Enough is the point where an increase in our standard of living takes too much from the other areas of our lives. You only have so much life energy. Once you give that away, you cannot get it back. This is where during our live presentations, we typically we sing this song called "The Whole" by Randy Travis, and I think it's important because you can't really see the words here, but it's about a rich man who, or a guy that sets out to be rich, and he thinks he's going to find happiness. So he says he's going to dig him a mine. He's looking for diamonds and for gold, and but he gets in too deep, and he can't let go of the shovel, so he keeps digging and digging and digging. And what we say is that when you're in a hole and you've got these things, the first thing you got to do is put down the shovel. So, but it says driving his future right into the ground. He thinks he's closer the further he goes, but he's still on the bottom and he can't dig out of the hole. So that song kind of makes it hit home, you know, and a lot of people probably know that song. And I encourage people to listen to it because it's got a very valuable lesson that, you know, people set out to have all these nice, huge cars, huge boats, all these houses, and they think it's going to make them happy. And sometimes it can, but there's no research that says that it does make people happier to have those things. Case in point, very simple. There was a study done, and they took the Forbes 400 richest people in the world, the African Maasai tribe, and the Pennsylvania Amish. And they were trying to figure out which group was happiest. And it's amazing, the African Maasai tribe live in houses made from elephant poop. Pennsylvania Amish, they have no running water, no electricity. Let me go back. And what they actually found is the African Maasai tribe and the Pennsylvania Amish are actually happier than the richest 400 people on this planet. The Pennsylvania Amish, it was funny because the way they did this study is they had a list of smiley faces, and on the far left it was the saddest, most unhappy face you could ever see. On the right hand side, they had a big old grin, happy as you could be. And they, the Pennsylvania Amish, they all circled the 9, the one right before that huge, big, happy face. When they asked them, they're like, why did everybody, you know, circle this one? They all had the same response. We were taught it's not polite to boast. They were that happy. No running water, no electricity. I thought that was an amazing little story because even in the midst of the study, they still had a little bit of humility, even though they were off the chart happy. Another real simple lesson: wealth doesn't automatically provide financial security. John Connolly was the governor of Texas. He was actually in the car when John F. Kennedy was shot in Dallas. He had $13 million. He ended up selling his wedding gifts off his back porch. He just he made some bad investments, and so once you figure out how much you need, once you figure out what it's going to take to be financially independent, once you get there, it becomes more about making sure you've got your assets protected, diversified, than it does about going out and trying to accumulate more money and stuff like that. That's the point of this slide. He tried to keep growing his money and growing and growing and growing. And back then, $13 million, I mean, that was a lot of money. He could have been had a pretty decent retirement, but he tried to go out and make more money. MC Hammer, this is a funny one because he sang the song "Can't Touch This." You know, he evidently wasn't singing about his money. That's the joke we have around here. Lost $33 million. The Hunt brothers. They tried to corner the silver market, $7 billion, and lost $7 billion trying to corner the silver market. Those two brothers ended up losing the money. The third brother, Lamar Hunt, ended up owning the Kansas City Chiefs, and And the AFC Championship trophy in the NFL is named after him. So evidently he made much more wiser decisions with his money than the other Hunt brothers. Okay, so now what we say is, now once you define financial independence, define how much is enough, we think it takes what we call an interdependent diversified asset strategy to optimize the assets you have to give you the best chance of achieving those financial independence objectives. Your assets should work interdependently to create financial independence and financial security. Very important to look at not only the risk of your assets individually, but the risk of all your assets when put into a complete profile. And what most people do is most people have separate people handling all these different buckets. They've got an investment guy. They've got a guy that helps them with the real estate. They've got the pharmacy, obviously. They've got these things, and there's no coordination on how they all work together to help them achieve their goals. It's very important that you understand that how your assets work together, that is going to be a significant factor in whether you achieve your financial independence and ultimately the succession of your store. One of the reasons that it's hard to think about these things is because there's so many things out there. You know, what do I need to do? You're sitting there at your desk and you're saying, you know, I'm trying to figure out, do I need this? Do I need this? You've got people like me saying you need to think about this, you need to do this. Everywhere you go, there's always somebody telling you what to do with your money or what to do with your life, stuff like that. So what we say is having a well thought out plan, having that vision in place that we originally talked about, having that in place. That once you get that established, you understand how your assets are going to help you get to there. You can start making the right decisions about what you need in order to get you to your goals. There's another song by Randy Travis called Ants on a Log, and it talks about ants on a log floating down a river, and you're running around, you're doing all these things, but you're never really getting anywhere because you're on a log in a river. And it's a funny song, but it's symbolic of a lot of times that, you know, we're running around, we're getting all these things done, but are we really getting anywhere? So the point is that really understanding how this strategy works, how this strategy with your assets is going to help you, once you've defined how much is enough, how that's going to help you get to your vision for the succession of your pharmacy. Very, very, very critical. This is an overall part of a bigger plan. And I think this is important. This is the concepts. This is the framework behind all of our planning at Waypoint. And you can see at the very top of the chart, Success Life Plan. This is that vision. And you see there's 7 areas of your life that have been identified throughout the years that are very important to have part of your life in order to live a successful life. It dates all the way back to Aristotle and Plato in ancient Greece. However, it's at the top of the chart. So you can see that it's more important. The higher you go up the chart, the more important to have clarity about these things, because we're getting progressively more important the higher we go as it pertains to the overall success of the plan. So understanding the vision, understanding the strategy, how these assets help you achieve your vision. Understanding, now once you understand what your assets need to look like, then we can go in and say, what does my retirement plan need to look like? What is my investment plan? You know, what can I do from a tax perspective? How much do I need to pay myself, and how do I need to pay myself? What does my estate plan need to look like? And then once you understand that, then coming down here, you can say, now I understand which products are going to help me implement these plans, which are going to help facilitate this strategy, which is going to help get me to my ultimate definition of success, that vision that we first talked about. All right. We're going to talk about the process for succession of your pharmacy. and we're going to explore the pitfalls and advantages of your options for succession of the pharmacy next. All right, the process of succession, really important. Understand your reality. You got to let go. Number 2, create a contingency plan. Once you have this vision, once you have that vision of where you want to go, understand that it's going to happen. That's the first step. 2, create a contingency plan. Number 3, let me go back to number 2 real quick. Create a contingency plan. Very important to understand. This is one of the most important and the most vulnerable times in a pharmacist's life. So having all the contingencies understood, written down. Biggest one is what happens as a pharmacist if you die or become disabled in the middle of this succession plan. We have to understand what happens if your successor dies or becomes disabled. Understanding coming up with a contingency plan is very important, and then communicating that contingency plan to all necessary parties is critical as well. Excuse me. Begin implementing the succession plan. First part is identify the successor. Second part, preparing yourself. Third part is preparing the pharmacy. The fourth part is developing the successor, making sure to give the successor the best chance. Prepare the family is the fifth step, very important. If you're working 50, 60 hours a week like most pharmacists, you've got to replace 50, 60 hours a week. Sometimes the significant others or the spouses are not necessarily prepared to have you around for 50 to 60 hours a week. So we hear this all the time. Get him out the house. Find something for him to do. We hear that all the time, and we laugh about it because it's funny sometimes, but sometimes it can cause some stress in the family. The process of succession. 4, the CEO's personal challenge. What do I do after succession? Very important. Replacing all that time and energy that you spend in the pharmacy with something that's meaningful in your life is very important, or it's going to be very difficult to transition out of the pharmacy. There's some other plans, your estate plan, family plan, business plan, financial independence plan. Those are all part of succession. They were all on that chart that I showed you earlier. So there's some other things to consider for succession. We're not going to talk a lot about those today, but we're talking more about the succession plan from your perspective. All right. It's basically 3 options for succession of pharmacy. Number 1, selling to an insider. We're going to address these individually. Family members in the pharmacy. Junior partners. That's big. We're actually going to be an NCPA, the annual convention in San Diego this year. We're doing 2 hours on junior partnerships. There's some people in our industry that feel that junior partnerships don't work. We feel like they're an essential part of the success of pharmacies moving into the future. Number 2, selling to an outsider. Family member not in the pharmacy. Chain store pharmacists looking for independent direction. We're seeing quite a bit of this at this point. Chain store pharmacists becoming disillusioned with the chain store, the corporate structure. A lot of them from CVS right now are looking for independent direction. Conglomerate of pharmacies, pharmacists. There are a lot of groups of pharmacists that band together to buy pharmacies. And then if this is the only option, sell to a chain store. This is a viable option in some cases. We don't like seeing this, but we have to acknowledge that it is an option. Then number 3, liquidation. Worst case scenario is you liquidate your store. We have a few pharmacists that are eventually going to liquidate their store because they cannot find somebody to come in there and buy the store. Even though we're working as diligently as possible to do that, there are ways that you can kind of, we had a pharmacist say, one of them said, I'm just going to run with this thing, until I can't do it anymore. and he's 70 years old. And I thought that was he said there's nothing wrong with that. And we said no, there's not. You know, and he's generating more money through the pharmacy right now than he would get if he sold it. So he said there's some benefits of doing it this way. You know, even though I have to work these long hours. So I thought that was an interesting little scenario. So that is an option. We typically don't like seeing that. We like trying option 1 or 2 first, and then if we can't do that, we'll come up with a liquidation plan. The fourth thing is do nothing. I said liquidation was the worst case scenario. Actually, doing nothing is the worst case scenario, because you know, not having a game plan, in our opinion, can be the most disastrous thing, you know, that a pharmacist can do with their pharmacy. Sell to an insider. It's really important. I'm just going to highlight these real quick. Continuity of customer service. These are the benefits. Process is already known and understood. Share the same ideals and values. Numerous options for succession and financing. Credibility and customer loyalty more easily transferred. Some of the pitfalls. Self-financing for buyout. Likely the only option. Somebody inside typically is not going to have the money to be able to buy the store outright. Lack of experience of the process. No clear-cut ties from the pharmacy. Customers view senior pharmacist as decision maker even though he or she may not be. Unclear rules and accountability issues. Those are just some of the benefits and pitfalls of selling to an insider. Selling to an outsider. Benefits clear-cut transition, mentally and physically. Mentally and financially. And physically, I guess. Number 2, stronger financials. 3, better financing options. 4, roles are more clearly defined. Pitfalls, less continuity of customer service. Ideals and values may not be shared. Hard to locate. Unclear of existing processes. No control of staffing changes. Credibility and customer loyalty may not be transferred very easily. One of the things that it doesn't say under benefits, it says roles are more clearly defined. It's very important that from an accountability standpoint, it's typically easier to hold somebody coming in from the outside more accountable than it is to hold somebody that's been working there for a long time or somebody, a family member or something like that. So there's accountability issues with selling to an insider that you don't have with selling to an outsider. All right, how do you find a potential successor? It says South Carolina Pharmacy Association. This is the last place. This is the last place we did this program. But your state association, they are. It's been our experience that these state associations are really starting to focus on this issue, and they're really becoming more involved because it is such a key issue in the practice of independent community pharmacy. Schools, student rotations. Most states have pharmacy schools. Matter of fact, all of them do. I don't know about Alaska or Hawaii. Most of the states we work with have pharmacy schools. Get students in there. Start talking about the benefits of independent community pharmacy with them. We have a pharmacist in South Carolina that buys pharmacies, and he actually encourages people from his community to go to pharmacy school, and he says if you go to pharmacy school, when you come out, we'll make you a part of a new store. So and people, it's been very successful. I think there's 5 or 6 or 7 people, young people from his community now that are working in his pharmacies, and he gives them a little bit of ownership interest, and they work into eventually being an owner in that pharmacy, a main owner in that pharmacy. It's a great business model. Wholesale drug companies. Everybody here most likely has a wholesaler. They have a vested interest in you remaining independent. That's their livelihood. So they're going to help you, and they should help you, in any way they can help you find somebody to come in there. Others that have a relationship with pharmacies, buying groups, trade groups, anybody that works with pharmacies. I know there's we do a lot of work with the NCPA student chapters here at the schools in South Carolina, and we go and we talk about the benefits of independent community pharmacy with them. And a lot of them, matter of fact, it's a lot of them tell us they didn't even know independent was a route they could go, And so we're trying our best to bridge that gap in the education of these people that are in pharmacy school, these young people, to help them understand that this is an option moving forward if you want to look at it. We have to communicate that. Chain store pharmacist looking to be independent. Just have another story of a pharmacist. He just opened up a store with an old CVS pharmacist, and they knew each other from school. And he picked up the phone, called the CVS pharmacist, and said, "Listen, I want to open up a store in your area, and I want you to be the pharmacist, and I want you to be an owner in the pharmacy." And the gentleman said, "You know what? I've been thinking about leaving CVS. I'm very disillusioned with what they're doing right now." So it was a perfect opportunity to bring somebody in from a chain store in that area, and that pharmacy has been very successful. So don't keep your antenna open, because there's always these opportunities out there. Word of mouth. You know, when you're ready to start looking for somebody, start telling people, "I'm looking for a young person." We've got a pharmacist client, and they're in the upstate of South Carolina, and they've been looking for a young person, and they just said, "We're going to make a conscious effort to tell everybody we talk with we're looking for a young person," and they found a young person finally. It took a little while, but it finally got to somebody that went to college in this town. It finally got to that person, and that person said, "I would love to own a pharmacy in the town that I went to college." So it was a perfect scenario where that word of mouth that started spreading, and it got to one person. They called us, we called this pharmacist and said, "We're going to get you in touch with each other," and it's worked out. So great success story of spreading things word of mouth. Valuation of your pharmacy. When you bring in a young person, or you bring in somebody that's going to buy your store, they're going to know the valuation of your pharmacy. This is from 2006, so this has changed a little bit. I'm not going to really hit these too much, but I'll tell you a little bit about valuations. The rule of thumb with valuations is there's so many different ways you can value a business that, you know, is very subjective. So what we say is, once you get serious about this, and you find somebody and you want to bring them in and you want to talk about numbers, you really need to understand what the value of your pharmacy is. We have some basic guides that we do. We're not sort of valuation experts, but there are people out there that can help you with that. And if you're interested in looking at something like that, just pick up the phone, call us, and we'll get you in touch with a few of the people. There's one out of Atlanta. There's a gentleman out of Atlanta that we use quite a bit, and we'll get you in touch with him if you're looking at a value or looking at determining value for your pharmacy. Basically, there's all kind of different methods. You can do a percentage of sales. You can do a dollar per prescription. That's what the chains use a lot to value independence. You can use profitability of the store, which is the one we like to use, or you can use EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, which there are a lot of companies that help finance purchases of pharmacies, and that's what they use. They use EBITDA. That's EBITDA, I believe is how you say that. Okay. Very important to have some team members in place when you start thinking about succession. First thing you want an estate planner. We talked about the contingency plan. You dying or becoming disabled. If you die in the middle of this process and there are huge estate taxes owed, or you and your spouse die and there's huge estate taxes owed, this year it's $5 million exemption per person, so not a big issue for most of the pharmacists we talk to. Next year, if it resets back to $1 million apiece, there are a lot of pharmacy owners that are going to be thrown into these estate tax brackets. Estate tax can destroy all your plans and your legacy for your family and your community. Very important you take care of those things. CPA, obviously, there's going to be some tax implications of this succession plan. Having a CPA on board is very important. An attorney. if you're selling to a junior partner and they're buying out a piece at a time, having the transaction documents, having all these things taken care of is very, very important. Financial advisor, very, very important. One of the things we talked about, is when you begin preparing yourself, you've got to be prepared mentally and financially. Having somebody help you get prepared financially is going to remove that side of the equation from being a roadblock for succession. Banker, sometimes very important to have a banker if for financing purposes, obviously. And then finally, a business broker if needed. Sometimes we just had a pharmacy that was just sold by a broker. And this gentleman, we tried to find him a young person to come in there, couldn't do it. He had a couple of independents looking at a store. They wouldn't move. So we recommend that he use a broker that we know, and they just sold it. I mean, I just got the email the other day. They just sold his pharmacy. Took a little while, but the broker came through and found somebody to buy that store. So basically, in summary today, we have helped you better understand your current situation, helped you really think about that vision. That's the most important part. Help you clearly define what financial independence means. Really important that you start thinking about, how much is enough. Once you know how much is enough, what do I need my assets to look like to generate that amount of income that I need? That's true financial independence. That's the interdependent asset strategy. What do my assets need to look like as a whole to help me achieve the financial independence, which is going to help me ultimately transition out of the pharmacy? Those are things you need to think about. Explore the options for succession. Sell to an insider, sell to an outsider, liquidate, and do nothing. So the 4 options. Sell to an insider, sell to an outsider, in our opinion, are the best 2. Liquidation is the 3rd, and then do nothing, obviously, it's something. There are some pharmacists that don't do it, never do anything, and it works out for them. But there are some that don't do anything, and it's disastrous for their legacy. Strategies and tools used right away. We have that workbook. Like I said, we'll put that up on our website. When you go to the front page, it'll say Succession Planning Workbook for Succession Webinar. Click on it, and it'll take you to another page. Fill out your information, and we'll send you a copy of it. That is very important. That's one strategy and one tool you can use right away. We have numerous other tools. I encourage you, if you're thinking about this and you want to know the tools we have, contact us, call us, go to our website, submit a request for some information. We'll get it to you, I promise you, and it's extremely useful. This is one of the most vulnerable times. This will be one of the most vulnerable times in your pharmacy life. Make sure you have all your bases covered. Make sure there's a clear plan for this. If you do that, you'll maximize the value you receive for your pharmacy. You'll have greater personal independence. It's just the consequences are too dire to let anything go by chance. So let's plan for this. Now you're much clearer about your situation. Better think about what you need to do. Have some tools that we have provided. Really important. With all this information and that workbook and the tools we have, you can really start taking action and make immediate progress. Wayne Gretzky, we always start with Wayne Gretzky and we end with Wayne Gretzky. We're not big hockey fans here, but we respect Wayne Gretzky because the guy was an amazing hockey player. He said you miss 100% of the shots you never take. And I thought that was another great analogy for what's going on in the pharmacy world. This is going to happen to each and every one of you. It could be 5 years, it could be 30 years down the road. You may only get one shot at this. And if you only get one shot, you better make sure you take it. Very important. So that concludes our webinar. for tonight. I want to thank everybody for attending it. We hope you found it very helpful, and we hope the content was useful, and we encourage everybody to take full advantage of the content on here. Before I open it up for questions, just wanted to, if you want any information from us, you can go to waypointus.com. That's our website. You can email us info@waypointus.com. That's our inbox if you want some more information about this. Or you can call us, and our number is 843-873-4420. That's our phone number. That's our main line that you call. We at Waypoint, we're a small family-owned business, and if you call here, you typically get a family member, and we try to answer every single phone calls that comes in. So very rarely do things go to voicemail. So, and we pride ourselves on that. So, thank you so much for your time, and I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions, and we will go from there.